What do you think of Jean-Luc Godard?
Um, so I've only seen Pierrot Le Fou. I think I don't think I've seen any of his other films, so I'm not sure. But based on that, I mean, Pierrot Le Fou is interesting because it reminds me a lot of Un Chien Andalou, which was famously Dali and Louis Buñuel trying to adapt their dreams into a short film just to see how it would be. And the same way, Pierrot Le Fou feels like someone's basically just like taken a dream and made it into a film. Like there's no logic, there's no plot to it. It's sort of just randomness, but not in like a bad sense. In a way, it's sort of like it feels like a dream. Everything doesn't feel quite real and it feels quite surreal, but it's sort of still comedic. So it's interesting. Again, I can't comment for the rest of his works, but I feel like you have some comment on Godard coming up.
He, hold on, is it him the one that, or is it François Truffaut?
I think Truffaut's the one you've complained to me about before.
Oh, okay, maybe I've got them confused then. Right, Jean-Luc Godard, is he the one who, did he write a book on Hitchcock? Was that him? Was that also François Truffaut?
That's the famous interview is Truffaut and Hitchcock.
Right, yeah, so it's Truffaut that's the wanker then.
Yeah. Not a fan then.
Oh, I really, really, really don't like François Truffaut. Because he's a dick. He's so far up his own arse that I just despise him. And also his whole thing of like, we're going to completely deconstruct how they normally make films, and they have the jump cut and all this stuff, and it's like half the reason these very basic filmmaking techniques exist is to make the film coherent and enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because Francois Truffaut's films are fucking terrible. They're very, very obviously they're important to film history.
Yeah.
But they're not good to watch. One of his films is just watching a man driving around Paris waving a gun at people. It's like, why?
Which one's that?
That's a good point. I can't remember what that is.
Cite your sources, man.
Cite your sources. But also, I don't know. I mean, there's probably more to this, but there's the big irony about how he, hates Hollywood films and despises the like factory nature of it, and he likes the auteur, it being one person's stamp, and he hates the Hollywood factory, and then he is a massive fan of Hitchcock, who is famous, one of the most famous Hollywood directors of all time.
But even then, Hitchcock was also, the grand auteur. He was pretty much the person. The term auteur was developed for him and his films. So it makes sense in that case that Truffaut was so sort of madly in love with Hitchcock. Platonically, I'm sure. I don't.
Hitchcock's also a creepy weirdo.
He is creepy, yeah.
Oh well. Well, that's enough of bashing that man. That's not even who you were talking about. So
No.
We did definitely do Jean-Luc Godard as well, but I don't remember.
He did
much of his work.
Breathless. Is probably the big one that most people know, which was
Possibly.
sort of the influence of Bonnie and Clyde, somewhat.
Okay.
But yeah,
maybe.
Pierrot Le Fou I saw at uni. But I mean, you're right, because Pierrot Le Fou was an interesting experience, but I wouldn't watch it for fun,
Yeah. Well, a lot of those films are, like the French New Wave films aren't entertaining.
No. And this is still going back to what I said before, like, how great are films that don't actually entertain you and hold your attention.
But there's a difference between, not want, like, that. I wouldn't watch any of Francois Truffaut's films again because they fill me with rage, and I just don't think they're good, and they're very revered as being these masterpieces, and I think they're, something a 10-year-old YouTuber could curl out. But comparing that to Rise of Sky, I mean, I wouldn't choose to put Skywalker on again, but if it was on, I wouldn't really moan.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone put on fucking anything by François Truffaut, I'd be like, can you turn this off?
Well, see, exactly. Like, if I had to choose between watching Pierrot Le Fou again and watching Rise of Skywalker again, even though Pierrot Le Fou is a much better film and much more worthy of existing and says more, I'd probably choose Rise of Skywalker because it's it's an easier watch and it's more enjoyable. But you know, there are high art films that I would love, and like, you know, I talk about Tarkovsky quite a lot. I'm not sure if I mentioned him on the podcast before, but I mean,
That's a
what
surprise.
the reason I go on about him quite a lot is because even though his films, a lot of them are very long and they are very artsy, like they're some of the artsy films I know, they're still engaging. They still hold my attention. I still want to rewatch them, which is
Yeah.
why I value him so much, because he's one of those rare examples of a filmmaker who's incredibly artsy and sort of philosophical and very, very much far away from that sort of Hollywood style of filmmaking, but it's still accessible and it's still enjoyable to watch.